Welcome to another one of my art classes. Today we're going to be painting this manatee right here that's sticking its snout out of the water, taking a breath of air. So, I don't know if you can see this, it's basically the body goes here, round, roughly round there, and then this snout is a bit of a rectangular thing. So it's like a big giant potato with a rectangular snout, so the opening drawing shouldn't be too difficult. Now let's go through the supplies you're going to need. We're going to need a square canvas or canvas panel. This is a canvas panel. This one here, the one I'm basing it off of, is 12 by 12 inches. This one I'm actually working on right now is going to be 10 by 10 inches. The paint I'll be using today is this set by Artist Love. Got the main colours, got your primaries, a green, a white and a black. This is pretty much the cheapest one that you can buy, so I'm just doing it on the cheapest supplies you can get to show you how to do it on that if you know, just getting into it, don't want to pay for expensive supplies. Pencil obviously, rubber probably to help you, palette for putting the paint on, and we're going to be using 3 brushes today. A decent sized flat brush for getting a lot of paint down fast, a thinner one for doing more precise details. There's a smaller flat brush, and quite a small round brush for doing the finer details. So, get yourself all set up. Right now, if you're set up, let's get on with it. If not, pause the video and then come back in a second once you've all set up again. Alright, so let's make a start. We're going to roughly about 3/4 of the way along here, on this side, put a little mark, and about 3/4 of the way here make a mark, and these are going to be the bases of where the body of the manatee is going to be there. And I want you to kind of do imagine you're making an oval there, and then we can refine it slightly like there. It's going to come out a bit more, roughly to about here. It's okay if you make little lines like me, you just got to like refine slightly, making it more rounded. There you go. I'm going to rub out some of the opening lines I've got there, just as a basis. So that's pretty much the opening bit of the body of it. Now we're going to go on towards the snout, which is going to be make a mark where you want it, just past the halfway point, probably around there. It's where you want one part of it to be, and the other half is going to be, I would say, just below the halfway mark on this axis, and just past the halfway mark, probably there. You can make a curved line to it, one line going underneath for where the bottom lip bit would be, and I'm going to curve it round to meet with this rectangle, and make it more of a rectangle there, curve it in with this, and on this side going to extend it there and then bring it back to the body here roughly. Now we're going to draw roughly where the eyes are going to be, which is going to be on this side. It's going to be, because of the angle, it's going to be a thin oval there like that, whereas on this side, based on where it is, the eye is going to be quite close to this side here, quite close. You can adjust it if you're not completely happy with it yourself. There you go. That's roughly how I'm going to do it. It's going to be a bit big, I think. So part of the refining process, this doesn't look like much now, I know. But now we do this bit where we add where the snout is sticking out of the water to give a bit of definition. Now, the important thing here is to make an indent on this side so it goes downwards there. Down to indicate the depth of the nose and the snout sticking out, and then roughly right towards the edge here, quite close to this end, bring it round, try and be fairly flat there. Curve this way to indicate the head going out that way, and then bring it back in a sort of curved shape there. And then we're going to create roughly a kind of triangular element to the nose here, because they roughly go towards a triangular bit, just to give an indication of where we want the darker sections to be when we go underneath, and where we want the nostrils to be. Which is to try and bring it there. That's normally there, and then there's go one roughly there, and the other one roughly there. And that is our very rough basis for starting this painting. It's not too complicated to draw in. I'm not sure if I'm happy with myself with how wide this section's out. I may go slightly thinner there myself, and it's got a good bit more of a chin round under there. It's important to do have a go yourself now with this, trying to refine it to how you want it to be. I want this to be a little bit more curved out down there too. There. You can refine it as you wish until you get it how roughly you think you'd like it to be. You can make it you can work on it a lot to get it spot on, or you can just go, I just want to put some paint down. You've got a decent thing, I can always change it a bit with the paint, which you can do. So if you're happy with your drawing, then let's move on. If you aren't happy with your drawing, then I suggest you pause the video right now so you can keep working on it, and then play it again when you're ready. Right, so I'm going to pop these away, get some paint out. We're going to start on the water here, and if you're like me, you're going to get the blue and get some green to get the water going. A little bit there. There you go, and a little bit of white just to lighten it up. There you go. All together, let's get the big flat brush out, wipe it off a bit of excess water on it, and mix in our colour here. You can make it greener or bluer depending on whichever your preference is. I've kind of got it into a bit of a turquoisey colour that I'm happy with, but maybe I want to make it a bit more green on the opening layer and add a bit of blue later on. I mean, I'm going to add a hint of yellow, not much, just a little bit. Now, when we do this, I suggest that you put it on with big thick strokes around here, and then when we get closer towards the body, we'll switch over to the smaller flat brush so then we don't go too far into the actual drawing of the manatee. So just get the paint on. We're putting things over the top of it anyway, so there's no particular direction that you need to go. Get it on nice and fast. Don't put it on too thick either, otherwise it'll take a long time to dry, and this is just like an opening layer anyway. Go as close to the manatee as you feel comfortable in your abilities without the risk of going into it with this colour. So you're going to pop that in there in the water. I'm going to wipe off and get the smaller flat brush just to go around the edges a bit. There we go, now that's done. We're going to switch over and use some blue. I've used a bit too much paint here, so we're going to try and be a bit more economical with the space. Got some blue. I'm going to put a bit of white in. There, and then a small bit of black too, because we want to make it like a bluey grey. There. We may need a bit more white shortly to lighten all this up, but we'll see. So there we go, we've got a nice enough blue. I'm going to start by putting it on here. Stay well clear of this line that you've got there for the drawing. And stay clear of the eyes too, obviously. If you're not as confident as like that with that bit, feel free to wait and use the smaller brush. So I'm going to switch to the smaller flathead brush now, flat brush, to get toward closer to this line where the snout's sticking out of the water, and around the edges here. You're just getting closer to this line. Make sure it's not a completely even line, because it wouldn't be with the ripples of the water and how much of the snout is going out, the different contours of a manatee's face and all that. It wouldn't be a completely flat line, so we don't want it to be. So there you go. I think it's about time to pause on this bit and we'll move on to the next part. Actually, I need to just go a bit closer on these. Yeah. Now, if you're ready to, let's move on to the next bit. And the next bit we're going to do is going to add a different type of colour into the water. Going to add a bit and get a bit black. Put a dab of it in there. We're going to include, get our small brush, the small flat brush. And get a bit of this there, mix it with some of this you've already got, and create a slightly darker version of it. I think I'm going to add a little bit of green too. You've got to get this looking a bit like a dark turquoise, which is roughly, or a teal, dark teal, dark turquoisey sort of colour. A bit more of that. There you go. And we're going to do roughly like create sense of ripples around this water area. Not too much and not too deep with colour. We're just kind of being quite loose as well. Look how I'm holding it. Is you're not close the way up for detail like that, you're holding it quite loosely, further back on the brush like this. And we're just going to indicate there's areas in the water, the different patterns from the water being disturbed. They soon need to mix more. And I may aim to make it a bit darker just round where the water under the body will be there. Now we've got the black out, and we will want to do a bit on the eyes, and in fact let's switch to the thin round brush here, this one. Make sure you wipe it off if you've had it in the water like me, and then just use it, hold it quite close. And we're just going to do this. Try not to put your hand on the paint now because it'll be wet, or you can let it dry before doing this. Little bit on the, not all the way on the nostril, but on the inside bit there, bit around the outside. And then we'll do a darker layer just on the inside bit of this here. Make sure it's not a straight line. Just do a little bit of the darkness under here. Especially on this bit here now. I'm going to pretend this is a triangle, and it's like, imagine it's going from there to there, and that's a triangle, and you want it to be darker, so just to roughly about here. So imagine it's the tip is the between the nostrils there, and going down to the tip of the mouth snout either side there. Feel free to go in with some black with this thin brush. Maybe get a bit of water on your brush ahead of time so it's a not quite as strong a black, and then just get it in. So you get a few different types of ripples in the water. We'll add lighter colours over the top of it later on to make it not look so dark. We're staying a bit clear of putting it on over the top of this because we're going to do different things to the there in terms of giving texture to the Manatee first, and then put a lighter colour of this sort of, you know, this sort of colour over the top of it. Very light film, just to indicate that that part's underwater. We're going to do that later on once we've added detail to the Manatee in this section here, and obviously here. Alright, I think I'm going to leave this to dry a while now before then moving in with some blue on, darker blue onto this section here. So I suggest you give yourself a little bit of a break if you're using acrylic like me. I presume you are, that's what this class is. Then give it a break, it shouldn't be too long, and then we'll come back to it in a minute. So before all this has a chance to dry completely, because we will reuse some of it, let's get on with this painting. So I'm using this blue here, put a little bit in the thing. I'm going to be using this middle brush here, the small flat brush, get some on there, and we're going to go right into making this area a bit darker. Some there on the nose, we're going to do it a bit round here. The light source is coming from this direction here, so we're going to do this side as darker and a bit in some bits here. A bit of the bright blue right in the nostril too. Add a little bit into this stuff here, into these areas. I'm going to put some roughly now where the areas we're going to have some of the creases on the face, like there's one there, going over the nose there, over the snout. I need to top up some of this blue. I'm going to put some of this blue now in the parts that will be underwater too. Like round the eye area, just round it where there's a shadow where the eye goes in. There's some in the eye there. A bit of black to this blue as well. Make a nice navy bit for some parts. Now we're going to add a line roughly here, quite dark in this area, heading down to indicate that this snout is coming up now. We're getting a bit of definition and shape to it now. It can be here, there, and then the crease going up as if it's these manatees really stretching their nose up out of the water. A bit more black onto here, under the nostril on that side away from the where the light source would be. There you go. Now we're going to switch from that brush to the small round brush and do some stuff on the underwater bit where some of the creases would be. Example, some here, some around the eye, dark bits around the nose there, some darker creases over the nose there. So I'm going to look to get some of them in. Still holding it quite loosely, you're not trying to get too finer details on this just yet. And feel free to be fairly loose with it. Try and make small brush marks though. Remember, the direction of the shape is to go over it to create that cylinder type shape that the manatee is. So it can't be straight line, it's going to be rounded. And some dark spots, because we're going to do some debris on top shortly. This will be like shadows underneath the debris. Getting that slightly darker bit underneath there. There you go, it's looking more and more like it's underwater now. shouldn't say it, I should say they, them, the individual. And same here, get like little bits on, a bit more in this area. I'm not going to go too crazy because we're going to do a few more highlights and stuff in a bit. Just want to get some indication of texture that we can then refine in a bit. We want to get some black now and go in with some pure black details now for some of these lines. And this is where you need to be quite precise, thin, precise. If your canvas is wet like mine is, and the paint and whatnot, make sure you don't put your hand in it. I nearly did then. The light source is this way. The furthest part, the darkest part of this is going to be this section because you've got this snout blocking the light to this section of the snout. The nostrils and the bump is there. So this bit is probably the darkest part. So make sure you get some black down in this bit here. Now's a good time to get on with these little creases. Indicate the depth, be very precise with it. Just touching the canvas, you're not pressing it down, you're kind of lightly gliding it over it. You want to have quite a small amount of the actual brush touching the thing as you do it. Touching the canvas as you do it. Make sure they're not straight but cylindrical. Now in this section it's okay to do like a dot effect. Just here, because there's going to be the snout hairs. I'm going to follow up with some lighter ones over the top too to indicate the lighter side of these shortly. So just give some texture to this. You see it's very light dots there. You can add a bit more on the bottom bit here. just extending this out a bit, maybe. Then it curves back. A little bit of water, because these aren't going to be quite as clear the further they are underneath the water, so it's okay. A little bit on this side too. Now I suggest we go back in with some blue. Get a little bit, not much. I'm going to switch to the small flat brush we got here again, this one. Wipe it off if you need to. Go back in with a bit of blue there. I just add a bit of blue into this water. Like this. We're going to green it up a bit more in a bit. Here you go, you see these are quite loose brush marks. It's okay to occasionally go into where the manatee's body is here, just so then later on there's a bit of crossover when we start messing with it. A little bit of the darker stuff there. Mix with some small dab of water. Now I think we probably need to let that dry for a while now, because we're going to go over it with the lighter colours, the lighter blue, the white, some yellow into this stuff, and we need to make sure it's all dry. Otherwise it's just going to mix with these colours, and these colours are all stronger than those, so they'll be more prevalent. So now it's a good time to take a little break, come back in a minute, and we'll do the next part. Actually, I don't know if you do need a break, it's up to you if you've already taken one or not, but we're going to do the, you see here, this manatee is got loads of like little growths and plant debris on their body here going back, so we could actually work on some of that now whilst the rest of it's drying, for which we will use a bit of red, not much there, and we will also use our small flat brush here. Use some of this paint if it's still dry, if it's still wet I mean, to help mix a sort of browny colour. Then add a little bit of white. If you don't have any of this stuff left, just go straight for a bit of red and a bit of green. And that'll be fine. I've added a bit of white to lighten it up a bit there. Just touching it here and there. There's debris. Maybe a hint more red. This will give the brown, there's browny spots in some of them, the debris. Leave it there, I think, for that part. Now I'm going to get some yellow. Mix with a bit of white. And a very small amount of this colour here. Just picking some up on the brush to mix in with it. A bit more. There you go, giving it a sort of mustardy, yellowy sort of colour. Just going to do the same bit over the top of these parts, some of them miscellaneously, not too detail orientated. Try and make it circular again towards the cylinder of the Manatee here, so they're going in a circular motion. A few more dabs here and there. There you go, and now we're going to get a little bit of water on the brush, put it to one side there, get a little bit of this mixed in with the water, so it's quite a, not completely watery, but it's definitely not as thick a paint, more translucent. And then we're just going to add some green bits into the water. And even going over the blues a bit there. Be careful if you do that. Don't go too much in, just light touches. It'll help make the blue in the nose like pop out more, to make it more clear that it's the snout's out of the water and the other parts are still underwater if you do this. This is just an indication that there's like murkier water that's got that hint of green, like algae's growing in it or something. Try and make it roughly coming out from where the snout is. Make it being a rounded motion around that, like it's bursting out and pushing ripples around it. There you go. It's a very light bit there because we're still going to go over it with blues and whites and stuff. It's okay to do a bit there around that bit. There you go, it just looks a lot more like it's underwater now. And it allows this area to dry a bit more too. Right, I think we give it a little bit of a break there because we're going to come on with the white and light blue after this. And it's going to be a bit, basically everywhere, we're going to do a bit of some of that. So we'll let it dry a minute or two. So we're back, and it's time to do a bit of the finer detail stuff. Let's get some light blue going. We're going to do some a bit, obviously it's blue and white, about 1/4 blue, about 3/4 white to get the sort of light colour that we're after. Slightly adjustable depending on the strength of your white or the strength of your blue, but roughly that's what I'd say with this, mine at least. Kind of mix it in with the small flat brush. I'm going to switch to for actual use with the small round brush here. Get a bit on your brush, and where do we want to start? Let's start with a little bit round the edges of the water here, just like there's a little shine there. Again, quite loose. You see where I'm holding it a bit further back. We don't want it. It's even okay if you feel like you got a big bit there to take a bit off with your finger. that now. Going to do a little bit on the inside nose there, bit there, bit in the middle. Should leave a gap so you definitely still see the dark marks underneath. And now you see we've got this shape here and the light's coming in this way, so we want to do the lighter sides on this bit. So if you see these dark marks, you need to do a lighter side on the left of the mark. I'm holding it a bit closer now for a bit more precise mark making. Again, because this bit's be the highest part sticking out, we want to do almost like a light crest here, and then it's going to get darker as we go lower based on where the light's at. So definitely make some marks here, particularly on this crest there. Don't want to do too crazy with some of these marks because we're going to go over with white shortly too, to just make some parts a bit stand out a bit more than others. And feel free to do some lighter dots on this section. Also here is when it's a good time with this to do the lighter lines around the eyes. There's some bits where it kind of goes off, almost like a very odd spider type effect, little spider leg type thing. A slight hint of a light in there. Not straight out lines. They need to be a bit like curved and not too apparent either. The creases, because they almost like go off like there. And then on this side there's one like light bit right over the top of it there, crest for it, and a few underneath. A bit too much on my brush there. feel like you want to, you can get a bit of water, mix it with this blue just to lighten up parts of the actual manatee itself too. This is only with the slightly watery version of blue, and underneath the water too, so it's because it's not exactly as clear with the water in the way, making it a little bit less obvious. And because the light's going to be coming this way, we need to be able to see the lines here, so we need to get some lines down. Roughly to there. You may want to put a little bit more blue in it shortly over the top of this if we've lightened it too much. I'm not sure. Let's try to smooth it off a bit there. And slight dashes for where there's some hairs you can see here. Trying to be delicate here, not to do too much. We definitely want to keep a nice light section here though, with the light being on this side. Have it join up with this section, just to indicate a nice crease there of where the nose snout dips. Get the light, get some water again, mix it with some of this blue. I'm just going to go underneath the water again here, just do the line, just make some little marks. Don't want it too apparent, just indicating some texture underneath the surface of the water. Just some little marks on this side for the hair and stuff. slight wispy hairs that they have on the nose. The odd one just there. Just give a bit of texture and light to it. Very soft. Not much paint on the brush. A little bit more in this section here. I'm going to get a slight bit of this and put some of it on the with hint of water there, so it's not quite as a bit more transparent, not quite as opaque. Just put dabs in it. Then feel free to use your finger to kind of squash it in. Like, means that it'll land in slightly different, not a complete shape as you'd like. Okay, now we're going to move on to the white, and then after that we'll do any little touch-ups or improvements that may be needed. I'm going to wipe off that brush. I'm going to get the white. I'm going to do a very similar thing to what we've just done, just picking up the highlights, although we'll do less than what we've done the blue here, because the light blue is supposed to pick up certain highlights, and then the white is going to be to pick up the bits that are like really strongly bright, like round the nose on this side where it's particularly there, like you see here, and we're going to do it round the water's edge. That's also going to be a particularly thick bright element. So you get some white. Be quite delicate with your brush marks here. And try and get not a small little dab, but try and get a nice amount on there, because depending on the quality of your paint, because I've got the cheap stuff here to make it, you know, accessible value for people that don't necessarily have expensive art supplies in. This white is, I don't know, you need to have a decent amount on there for it to properly show up as bright as you may want, certainly as we want here. Do that. Now we're going to start on around the edges of this, the water, where the manatee's breaking the surface. Dip it around there. Got to do some parts a little bit thicker than some other parts of this, because it indicates that there's water moving in slightly different ways depending on which angle the Manatee is coming up at and how much of one side is pushing up more than the other. Now let's start on some of these little bits here, like this is a strong one, that crease, a little bit there. Some of this highlight on this side. Just to help indicate the shape of the nose there. Couple of small bits here and there. Too much. A few of these lighter highlights again. Just little dabs indicate hair and stuff. Need to put more white on myself. I'm virtually out there. Nice thick bit there. Some light bit on this side there. Smudge it in, just to help indicate the shape in the water here, because this bit just helps there, indicates the shape of the Manatee, some of the highlight parts. Go. And on some of the left sides of these bits stains there, if you these debris marks. Can on the left side of them just have a little bit of a lighter colour, just help. Have a look now what else we need. A few little nose marks here, a few little hairs, dots. Slight bit of texture to the nose. Now we need to add some lightness to the water, I think, and then we'll see where we are there. So, I think now's the time to add some light colours into the water. So we're going to get a bit more white. Or if you've got a decent palette, just use that, obviously. We're going to add, I think we'll go to the other brush actually, the small flat brush, wipe it off and get a little bit of water on it, a little bit, mix it in with some of the white. So it's not completely thick white, and then we're just going to add a few light marks to the water. You've got to be try and be quite light as you touch it. Don't touch it with thick elements, just a little bit of light colour in the water. And you can go over the thing now that we've done most of the stuff on there. You can go over here. I think we need a bit more water. It's a bit too light. Try and not make them completely curved lines. Try and make them a bit like proper ripples sending out. There. The other thing, if you put some water in it, it's quite easy to smudge it out if you do too much too. Now I recommend we get some slightly darker colour here, get some black. We don't want proper full black, we want watery black, which is a bit of water, a bit of black. Just have dark elements to these light ones in the water. Bit too much there. It's very key to be watery, seeing as we're going over this, because you don't want to make big black streaks over this. It'll look a bit odd. Make them semi-translucent. There we go, I did some dark stuff too. I may need to go back in with the light again to do a similar sort of thing. You might want to switch actually to the small round brush now. Just do a few thin lines like this. Don't make it straight. Make them go off a bit, like there's power in this snout pushing through the water. Now if you've got some of this paint left here, okay, I have this yellowy colour. I want you to get some, maybe mix it with the blue here, get some water in it, and then add little bits to it here too. Just to indicate that the water's a bit murky. Feel free to smudge it in with your hand a little bit. It just makes the blue of the nose pop a bit more too. Makes it just stand out that bit more. Feel free to slightly smudge it in. There you go, and I think we're pretty much done there. It's a bit too bright, that light. So let's bring it up closer, have a look. What do you reckon? If yours is not quite at this stage and you've got little details you want to work on, go ahead. Now, as you can see, you've got the eye here, the other eye, there you go. Got the nose and nostrils. Turn up the lighting a bit, it's hard to see it. The light's fading where I'm at. There you go. Looks in comparison to the example. This one's a bit darker I've done in it. But you know, that's part of the thing. The waters for manatees often gets darker and lighter depending on where they're at, with more murky, more plants in the bottom, more shadows, etc. So good, there you go. Thank you for doing this class with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it worked out as you wanted. I hope you had fun. Feel free to send me pictures of how yours went via my social medias, Robbie Potter Art, etc. Robbie Potter Art is the handle thing for him. So yeah, let me know how yours turned out. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.